Is Huntington past its sell-by date? Clash of civilizations or dialogue among civilizations? China has clearly adopted the latter, and so did the United Nations General Assembly. A China proposed resolution set June the 10th as the International Day for Dialogue among Civilizations, but the international mainstream media didn't even deign to report it. So what's behind this initiative, and why did China put so much for it? Will it make a real difference, or is it just another nice but futile idea? And how does China see its role at the UN amid what it calls once-in-a-century changes? Well, who's in a better position to answer these questions than His Excellency Fu Cong, the permanent representative of China to the United Nations, joining me for this exclusive interview from New York. Ambassador Fu, welcome to this special edition of The Point. Always a pleasure to have you. And last time we talked, you were head of the Chinese mission to EU in Brussels. You have been transferred to New York since April the 16th, less than 2 months ago. Congratulations, Ambassador Fu, and thank you for granting us your first sit-down interview in your new capacity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Liu Xin, for having me. And good evening from New York. So it is really great to see you again on the program.
Always a pleasure to have you on the show. So, Ambassador Fu, an International Day for Dialogue among Civilizations, lots of big ideas, and it was adopted, however, by consensus at the UNGA last Friday. Where does the idea come from, and why does China propose this International Day?
First, thank you very much for raising the question. Indeed, that was a major Chinese diplomatic initiative, and I'm very glad and we are very proud that we have delivered. And as you said, that last Friday, the General Assembly of the United Nations adopted by consensus a resolution proposed by the Chinese delegation. And the main theme of that resolution is to advocate the respect for the diversity of civilizations and the call for the promotion of dialogue on the equal footing among civilizations, and the call for the mutual learning from each other. And I think this is a very significant resolution. And as you said, that this resolution also designates the June the 10th as International Day for Dialogue. And also I want to emphasize that this is very much in line with the Global Civilization Initiative proposed by President Xi last year. And so the reason why we had put forward this resolution is that actually if you look around the world, you see a lot of disputes, a lot of conflicts or even wars. And also there is a surge of intolerance, extremism, and also populism. And actually in our view, all these can find their roots in the differences or the lack of understanding among cultures and religions. So we do believe that it is important that to have dialogue and mutual respect among the civilizations. And this, in our view, will make the world much more peaceful. That's the whole rationale behind that resolution.
Is this an answer to Huntington's clash of civilizations theory and those in the West peddling an inevitable clash among civilizations?
Indeed, we do not believe in the inevitability of a clash civilization, but we do see that there are dangers that may lead to such a situation. And actually, that is the reason why we do believe that dialogue on an equal footing in order to reduce prejudice and in order to enhance mutual understanding is so important.
Does China believe that now is the time to renew this call? Because this is not the first time that proposals for dialogue among civilizations were tabled. We understand there were previous initiatives by other countries, for instance, by former Iranian leader Khatami calling for an international year of dialogue. But that's in the early 2000s. Why is China renewing this call now?
As I said, we do believe that, of course, this is a whole process. The other great nations are also advocating this idea. And in our view, the angle of a civilization is a very potent angle that can promote mutual understanding. And we want to add our voices or add our efforts to the already gathering campaign for more dialogue and for more understanding among civilizations. Of course, China is not the first one to propose it, but we, again, at this critical juncture, we do believe that it is important that the world focus or refocus its attention on this crucial issue.
Well, you talk about the role of China in the speech about this proposal. You said that the proposal reflects China's firm support for multilateralism and the work of the United Nations, as well as China's responsible role as a major country amid once-in-a-century changes. So in the next few years, you will be standing there representing China. What kind of, how exactly does China position itself at the United Nations?
Well, China is a strong advocate of multilateralism and a strong supporter of the United Nations. And this is well known. This is one of the underlying principles of Chinese foreign policy. And then we also see ourselves as part of the global South. But when we talk about the global South, it is not meant to be an alternative to the West. Rather, it is actually to combine, in our view, that all parties of from the world can join their efforts to face the mounting challenges, as I said. And if you talk about China's position in this, as I said, that we see ourselves as part of the global South because of our similar historical experiences and our similar interests, and also our common call for world peace, and in particular, in the case of the global South, the call for development, and that is a crucial tenet of Chinese foreign policy. And China has been advocating here in the United Nations that the development should be put at the center of the UN work. And we have been advocating this, and we have been doing quite a lot. I'm sure you're also aware of another initiative from President Xi, which is the Global Development Initiative. And this has been widely supported. And actually, one of the first events I attended was to preside over a group of friends of the Global Development Initiative. So that is what we are doing here in the United Nations.
Of course, some of the core issues there are very polarized, let's say. Countries have very polarized opinion, and I mean the Palestinian-Israeli conflict at this moment. And unfortunately, the word that we hear very often is the word veto when it comes to this issue, the most recent one being the U.S. veto on Palestine's full UN membership. Actually, since the current conflict broke out, the U.S. has used its veto 5 times, and sometimes single-handedly concerning resolutions on Gaza. But China has also used its veto twice, and China abstained once. People would wonder, is there a difference between China's vetoes and the US's vetoes?
Yes, of course, there is a fundamental difference. Actually, this is the difference between the United States and the majority member of the majority of the Security Council membership, and including China. The key issue is whether we should impose or call for or even impose an immediate and sustainable ceasefire in Gaza. We all know, we all see the harrowing pictures on TV, and I think it is the overwhelming call to end the collective punishment by the Israeli government on the Palestinian people. And indeed, unfortunately, the U.S. has on several occasions vetoed Security Council resolutions that are calling for an immediate sustainable ceasefire. And that is the key issue. And on the part of China's veto, again, the reason why China vetoed a resolution proposed by the United States was exactly because that resolution did not contain the demand for an immediate ceasefire. Actually, that veto of China actually paved the way for a more significant resolution, which actually called for the imposition of a ceasefire in Gaza. And because of the pressure from the international community, we were happy to see that the United States did not veto that one, which is the number of which is 27, 28, if I remember correctly. And but unfortunately, immediately after that resolution was adopted, the United States said that it was not legally binding, and that was really a sad moment for the international community.
Is it legally binding? Are Security Council resolutions legally binding?
I think there is no doubt that the Security Council resolutions are binding. There is not even a shred of doubt on that issue.
Why did the United States say that it's not?
Well, actually, they need to explain themselves to the whole world. Actually, the whole world is asking the question, why does the United States, after allowing this resolution to pass, and then say that it does not have the legal binding force? And of course, this is more than a simple legalistic question. What they want to do is to protect the Israeli government in its war efforts there, and we do hope that the U.S. can amend its course and join the majority, the overwhelming majority of the international community, and use its influence.
However,
on Israel in order to stop the war.
However, it seems that at this moment, the United Nations Security Council, at least, is in some kind of a deadlock because of the stance and the very strong stance of the United States. The UN General Assembly has only passed 3 resolutions on the conflict since it broke out last October up to the end of May. Could the Council do more? Is it not able to take meaningful actions or to have meaningful resolutions to really make a difference on the ground?
Of course, we all know that the main responsibility of the Security Council is to maintain world peace and to deal with security issues. And so, of course, the Security Council could have done more and should have done more, I would say. And that's why we have been urging the U.S. actually to play its proper role and shoulder its proper responsibility in maintaining world peace, and join all the other members of the Security Council in calling for an immediate and sustainable ceasefire in order to provide alleviation to the sufferings of the people, the innocent people in Gaza. And well, actually, if you look at the history of the Security Council, actually, the Security Council, as I said, have passed 3 resolutions in a short period of 8 months, and actually, that number is not very low. And let's face it. But at the same time, what is most important is that these resolutions need to be implemented. And that is, I think, is a key issue.
What else can the Security Council do facing these kind of obstacles? Because we're hearing, for instance, the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations talking about the war on Gaza being one of a lifetime.
Well, actually, I think it is important that the Security Council keep the pressure on Israel, and I would say on the United States as well, and in order to have an immediate ceasefire. That is the key word. I have repeated this on several times, even in the last few minutes. I think that is the key thing. And because, as I said to one of the foreign journalists, that life is in the balance, and we really need to take immediate action. And so we do hope that we are aware that some negotiations are ongoing, and we do hope to see some quick results.
Okay.
Because we cannot wait even for a more single day.
Of course.
And it is really devastating to see so many innocent people, including women and children, are being killed by these air bombardments and artillery fires of the Israeli forces.
Okay. Well, speaking of these bombardments, I have this question, and I'm sure some people will be wondering. Look, China issued a joint statement with Arab countries at the end of May, during which China condemned Israel's occupation of Gaza and its aggressions in Rafah. China also condemned the U.S. veto on Palestine's full membership. However, on the issue of Ukraine, when the West has been pressuring China to condemn Russia, China has been very careful not to use that word, although saying China do respect every country's integrity and sovereignty and territorial integrity. How do you explain, how does China decide when to use the word condemn, when not?
Well, actually, each case is different from the other. I think we need to make the assessment and formulate our policies according to the merits of each case. And so these two cases are often mentioned together, but actually there are some differences to them. And I think that is only natural because these are two major events taking place. And as far as China's policy is concerned, actually there is a common thread underlying our position vis-a-vis these two issues, which is the respect for the UN Charter, and also the more importantly, or equally importantly, the call for an immediate ceasefire and the negotiated solution to the conflict. And I have explained our position on the Gaza issue just now. On the Ukrainian issue, I think China's position is quite consistent. We call for a ceasefire, and we also call for a negotiated solution. And actually, China has been making a lot of efforts. I'm sure people are aware that the 4 points that President Xi made very early on in the conflict, which is that the UN Charter, the international law, in particular the UN Charter, need to be protected, and the territorial integrity of all countries need to be respected. And China is ready to facilitate peace, and China is ready to make our contribution to the international efforts that aimed at putting a stop and putting an end to the conflict itself.
Well, let's continue to talk about the differences among major P5 countries. We've seen many cases where it seems that there is a direct conflict between the positions of the US-led West and its allies and China, together with other global South countries or developing countries, including Russia, on the outer space exploration. For instance, we've seen resolutions tabled by the United States, not adopted, and then amendments tabled by China and Russia, not amendment. Is there two blocks at the UN Security Council kind of forming, and is there kind of a deadlock developing within at least the UN Security Council, preventing cooperation among major countries?
Well, first let me say that I do not want to describe the state of play at the Security Council from the lens of bloc confrontation. And that is something we want to avoid. Not only at the Security Council, it is also one of the key principles of the Chinese foreign policy that we should try to avoid as much as we can a bloc confrontation. We do not want to see the world going back to the old war years. And having said
China
that,
is seen to be very close to Russia, and that's why a lot of media, a lot of politicians or pundits are describing Russia as a de facto ally of China. Does China pursue that?
Put it simply, we pursue a non-aligned policy. With respect to to Russia, we are good partners, but we are not allies. And our relationship is not targeted at any third country, and we develop our relations independently. Well, coming back to the Security Council, as I said, we do not want to see the Security Council from the perspective of the bloc confrontation. But at the same time, I have to say that this political council is becoming more and more politicized, and there is more confrontation and less consultation. And actually, people have asked me my first impression of the Security Council. Actually, I said that we need to have more consultation instead of confrontation. That is my thinking.
How do you plan to promote consultation? For instance, on outer space or on AI governance, there will be differences between China and the US-led West. How are you going to promote consultation, even cooperation?
As I said, at the United Nations, it's not China versus the United States. It is too simplistic. So we do not see our work here through that lens. Actually, China and the United States have cooperated on a wide range of issues. Just now you mentioned AI. Actually, that is an area that China and the US have been cooperating. You may have heard that China co-sponsored a resolution on AI proposed by the United States. And China is working on our own resolution on AI, emphasizing the capacity building, especially for the developing countries. And we are also working with first and foremost, with our friends and partners in the developing countries, but also with the Western countries, including the United States. And we do hope that they can join us in adopting by consensus again a resolution on the capacity building related to AI.
That's good news. That's good news. I hope there is more good news like that. But in terms of UN resolutions 2758, that one which is very important to China, it seems there are some strong contentions going on. A senior US State Department official recently openly challenged UN Resolution 2758 in late April. He said, for instance, that it doesn't constitute a UN taking an institutional position on the so-called political status of Taiwan. But the spokesperson of the Secretary General of the United Nations had this to say on May the 23rd. Let's take a listen.
On the issue of China, we are guided by the General Assembly resolution of 1971.
And what does that mean in this context?
Well, it means in terms of our standing on Taiwan as a province of China.
So it seems that the United Nations is very clear about Taiwan being a province of China. Why, in your opinion, do you think the US is trying to say that that resolution doesn't represent the UN position on the province of Taiwan?
And indeed, as you said, and as we have heard, that the UN has adopted a very clear-cut position that Taiwan is part of China. And actually, this the Taiwan being part of China is a historical fact, and actually from days immemorial, and Taiwan has been part of China. So there should not be any question. And what that resolution, the 2758, resolved was the legal representation at the United Nations. So just now you mentioned that the United Nations, by that resolution, restored the legitimate seat to the People's Republic of China, and at the same time expelled the representative from the Taiwan authorities. And at the same time, it says very clearly that the People's Republic of China represents the entirety of China. And that has been the consistent position of the UN, as we have heard. And as to why the US, after so many years, have come up with these irresponsible and misrepresented remarks, then you need to ask them. But my guess is that they are actually trying to encourage and abet the separatist tendencies on the island. And actually, the ultimate objective is to use Taiwan as a pawn or a leverage in their efforts to contain the rise of China. I think that is the ultimate objective. But of course, as you can imagine, this misinterpretation of the resolution 2758 has been rejected resoundingly. So the people should not be taken in by this false narrative by the United States.
So on a more personal note, let's end on a more personal note. So since your arrival at the United Nations, you have addressed 32 times your meetings in less than 2 months' time, not including the speeches given by your deputy, your two deputies. It seems that you're very busy. What is your impression? Why so many speeches to deliver there?
Yeah.
What's expected of China at this moment?
Actually, let me say that actually I've been here for a little over 50 days, less than 2 months. Actually, I arrived on the 16th of April. And in the past 50 days, my colleagues have counted that I have attended more than 120 meetings and events. It is indeed a very hectic pace. But as I said, I have a very strong team, so they help me a lot. And with a strong team, and I don't feel too much pressure, or at least help reduce the pressure on me. And actually, let me say that on a more serious note, and actually, after my arrival here, I was actually overwhelmed by the warmth that has been extended to me. Actually, the warmth is not by the colleagues from other member states of the United Nations and from the Secretariat. But the reason why they are so warm to me is not because of me, myself. It is because of China. And that actually the Secretary General himself actually received my credential on the same day of my arrival.
Wow.
That was quite a rare arrangement, and we highly appreciate that. Actually, that demonstrates the importance that the international community attaches to the role of China, and also expressed their high expectations on China's role.
Right.
And as far as I'm concerned, that also gives me not only an honor, but also heavy responsibility. I will be guided by the President Xi's concept of the building a global community of shared future, and also the three major initiatives, the global development initiative, the global security initiative, and the global civilization initiative. These actually are my guiding principles for my work here.
Well, we'll be watching closely your performance at the UN. Not just people from China, but people from everywhere around the world. So you have a tough job ahead, but I'm sure you'll do it well, as you always do.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Fu Cong, the permanent representative of China to the United Nations. And with that, we come to the end of this special edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin, coming to you from Beijing. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle Liu Xin in Beijing. On behalf of the whole team, thank you for watching. You've got The Point.